My uncle's pen tapped the contract like a guillotine's blade waiting to fall. "Sign it, Lily, or you're out of the will out of this family," he growled, his voice colder than the marble floors of his sprawling mansion. I stared at the paper, my future dangling on a single signature, while my cousin Ethan's smirk burned into me from across the room. I was 25, freshly graduated, and drowning in student debt when Uncle Harold summoned me to his estate. He wasn't just rich, he was a legend, a self-made tycoon who'd built an empire from nothing. Growing up, I'd spent summers here, chasing fireflies in his gardens, listening to his stories of grit and glory. He'd always called me his little spark, the one with his fire. Ethan, my cousin, was the opposite, lazy, entitled, always scheming for shortcuts. Yet here we were, in Harold's study, with everything on the line. The contract was simple, brutal, half my inheritance, millions. A life-changing fortune would go to Ethan, or I'd get nothing. Harold's reasoning, family unity. He said it like a preacher, but his eyes were sharp, testing me. Ethan, leaning against the wall, didn't even pretend to hide his glee. "It's only fair, Lily," he said, voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You've always been the favorite. Time to share." I wanted to scream. Share Ethan, who'd never worked a day in his life, who'd crashed Harold's vintage Jaguar and laughed it off, who'd once borrowed my college savings and never paid it back. This wasn't sharing, it was theft, dressed up as family values. My hands trembled as I gripped the contract, the words blurring through tears I refused to let fall. Flashbacks hit me hard. My mom, Harold's sister, had died when I was 10, leaving me to scrape by with my dad in a crumbling apartment. Harold had been my rock, paying for my books, cheering at my graduations. He'd promised me a future, a chance to escape the grind. Now, that promise was a trap. Sign, and I'd lose half of what I'd been counting on to build a life. Refuse, and I'd lose everything: money, family, the only connection I had left to my mom. "Why?" I whispered, my voice cracking. Harold's face softened for a moment, but only a moment. "Because Ethan needs it more," he said. "He's lost. Lily, you're strong. You'll survive." Survive? I'd been surviving my whole life, scraping, fighting, clawing for every opportunity. Ethan, meanwhile, was lost in a penthouse, blowing through trust funds. The injustice burned. I looked at Ethan, his designer watch glinting, his eyes daring me to fight. I could sign and walk away with something, enough to pay off my debts, maybe start a small business. But every fiber of me screamed against it. This wasn't just about money, it was about who I was, what I stood for. If I signed, I'd be admitting Ethan's way: cheating, coasting, manipulating one. The room felt smaller, the air thick with tension. Harold leaned forward, his voice low. "You've got 10 minutes. Lily, choose. 10 minutes to decide my future, to weigh love against pride, loyalty against justice." I thought of my mom, how she'd taught me to stand tall, to never let anyone take what was mine. I thought of Harold, the man who'd been my hero, now forcing me to bend, and Ethan, who'd always taken, never given. I pushed the contract back across the desk. "No," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Harold's eyes widened, then narrowed. Ethan's smirk vanished. "You're making a mistake," Harold warned, but I was already moving toward the door. "Maybe," I said, turning to face them, "but I'd rather lose everything than let you two decide who I am." The walk out of that mansion was the longest of my life. The gardens, once magical, felt like a graveyard of memories. I had no plan, no safety net, just a fire in my chest that refused to die. Days later, I got a call from Harold's lawyer. My uncle was rewriting his will, not to punish me, but to respect me. He said you reminded him of himself. The lawyer told me, "He's leaving you the estate, all of it." Ethan got nothing, not a cent. Harold's letter arrived a week later, scrawled in his shaky hand. "You're the spark. Lily. Burn bright. I cried then, not for the money, but for the man who'd tested me, who'd forced me to choose between my soul and his wealth. I'd won, but it didn't feel like victory. It felt like family messy, painful, real. What would you have done? Would you have signed the contract, taken the half, and walked away? Or would you have risked it all for principle, for pride? Share your thoughts. There's no right answer, only the one you can live with.